A very good morning to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on a Monday morning. I hope you've all had a good weekend. There was no West Ham football to ruin it, so that's a bonus, I guess. But also international football, we've got to congratulate Jarrod Bowen for getting his first England goal. Well done to him, and I hope there are lots more to come for Jarrod Bowen in an England shirt. He absolutely deserves it. Well done to him. I think it took 30 seconds for him to score England's fourth goal in the 5-0 drubbing of Ireland. Yeah, Ireland went down to one man, went down to 10 men, which made it a little bit easier for England to beat them. But well done to Jarrod Bowen. Really, really pleased for him. If you're new to the channel, first time you've come across West Ham Voice, please do consider becoming a subscriber of the channel. Costs nothing to subscribe, and the subscription will allow you to know when I'm next on. So if you enjoy the content, if you enjoy the show, then please become a subscriber. And whether you're a new subscriber, non-subscriber, or an existing subscriber, please do hit that like button as well to show your appreciation of the show. Now, what are we going to talk about? Well, I know the January transfer window doesn't open for at least another 2 months, and I am quite a stickler for not wanting to talk about transfers, but or so early on, should I say. But the one reason why I'm doing this show about potential transfers is because of some of the stories that have come up over the last few days. We've heard of player unrest, players not settling in, and also knowing that the current season is not going to the way we'd all hoped, you're going to kind of expect certain activity to happen in the January transfer window. Now, look, whether you blame Sullivan on appointing the wrong head coach, whether you blame Tim Steidten for bringing in the wrong players, or whether you blame Hulan Lopetegui for mismanaging the squad that he's got available to him, or whether that's a combination of some or all of those things, one thing's for sure is something has to change. Now, of course, if performances and results continue to be poor, then change could happen sooner rather than later. Now, whether Hulan Lopetegui stays or whether he goes, whether we get another head coach in, changes to the squad could be quite high up on the list to happen. Now, with rumours, as I've just mentioned, of player unrest and player discontent as well, we might be quite busy in the January transfer window. But which of the current squad could be leaving this winter? We've already heard that Guido Rodriguez and Niclas Fullkrug have not settled. And we can see that players such as Andy Irving and Carlos Soler are not quite the driving forces that we need in central midfield. So would it surprise anyone if some or all of those players were to leave in January? Now, from what we understand, all our money's been spent. So in order to have money to bring other players in, we've got to free some funds up. Selling a player or two, freeing up wages, getting some money into that transfer kitty is certainly going to help. So let's start off with Guido Rodriguez. The 30-year-old defensive midfielder, he signed on a free transfer in the summer after having spent 4 years at Spanish club Real Betis. Now, come January, he'll still have 2.5 years remaining of the 3-year deal that he signed back in the summer. And I would imagine if he's looking to move, or if West Ham are looking to move him on, I would imagine that maybe 1 or 2 Spanish clubs and maybe 1 or 2 Italian clubs might have an interest in the player. Now, according to Transfer Market, he's worth around 20 million euros. But I don't think for a minute West Ham would get anywhere near that sort of money for him. If we sold him in January, I think we'd probably be lucky to get maybe 10 million euros for him. But even 10 million euros would be a straight profit. Well, a straight profit less the signing on fee that he would have got when he came to West Ham in the first place. But nonetheless, there will be money in the kitty for other to use for other transfers. But the other slight stumbling block in moving Rodriguez could be his wages. Naturally, Premier League clubs often pay excessive wages to that of clubs in Europe. And Rodriguez is apparently on around £76,000 a week, which I'm sure was a major attraction to having him come to the Premier League in the first place. Now, if the rumours are true that Rodriguez is unhappy, then West Ham maybe could sell him, and maybe the player himself, in order to get a move back abroad, might be willing to reduce his wage demands as well. There is one move we could have up our sleeves, and I wonder if this could happen. Last January, David Moyes, under his reign, sold Pablo Fornals to Real Betis. Now, look, if we can agree some kind of swap deal with Fornals returning to West Ham and Rodriguez returning to Betis, maybe, just maybe, there might be a small chance of that suiting all parties. Now, although we sold Fornals for what, 8 million euros, I would suspect that Betis would want just a little bit more money back to sell him. So potentially it could be a straight swap deal. If they're both valued at around 10 million euros each, it could be a straight swap deal, and it might just suit both the players and the clubs. Now, Fornals, strangely enough, he's exactly the kind of central midfielder that West Ham are sorely lacking right now. And we know how much he loved West Ham and how much we, as a fan base, loved him. Fornals, he settled in quite well in the first half season at Betis. He scored, I think, 3 goals and he had 2 assists. But despite playing most of the season so far, this season, he's only got 1 goal to his name. So I just wonder if maybe there might be a swap deal happening. Let's not forget, it was David Moyes that moved the player on. And now that Moyes is gone, there's nothing to stop us from trying to bring him back to West Ham. And to be quite honest with you, if it happened and if Lopetegui is still here by January, imagine how much of the fan base he could win over by bringing Pablo Fornals back home. Let's see what happens there. The next player that could potentially leave in January is Carlos Soler. Now, we already know that his loan spell doesn't have an option or an obligation to buy him. The only thing is we don't know what that loan deal is at this moment in time in terms of whether it can be cut short. Now, there are other players at other clubs that have had their loan spells cut short for one reason or another. If it doesn't work out, there's no reason why, if there's no obligation or option to buy, there's no reason why we can't go back to PSG and ask them to take the player back. Now, naturally, PSG may want to move that player on again. They may want to loan him out to somebody else. Who knows? And that might stop them from wanting to take the player back. If they're lumbered with him, then what? If they're going to be stuck with him, if they can't move him on. Now, Soler's salary is rumoured to be something in the region of £80,000 a week. Now, if we freed that significant amount of money up, that could go towards bringing another player to West Ham United in January. And also, it could mean bringing a player in that would suit, again, if Lopetegui manages to stay until January, we could bring a player in that could suit Lopetegui's style more than Soler does at this moment in time. He's not been the success, Soler, that we kind of hoped for. And considering how long it took us to get him in the summer transfer window, it's a shame, really. And finally, the third player that could potentially leave, but to be honest, I can't see how, is Niclas Fullkrug. As mentioned, he's another player that's apparently not settled. And it's rumoured that, if he's available, there might be clubs interested in buying him. But there's a big, big problem here, isn't there? Niclas Fullkrug is injured. And we don't know when he's coming back. And we don't know whether he's coming back this season or not. So the very thought of selling him in January seems at this moment in time a little bit far-fetched. Now, with Fullkrug, he was out injured back in September with an Achilles tendon injury. We were told that he'd be back within a few weeks, and that didn't materialize. And then we know that he went to Germany to have some injections done. And we were told then that he'll be back soon after that. And now we're back. We're in the November international window, and there's still no sign of him. and it could be even longer before he comes back at all. Now, his injury is likened to an American footballer called Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey, he suffered exactly the same injury, Achilles tendonitis. He actually has them in both legs rather than just the one. And he did exactly the same that Fullkrug did. He went to Germany to have high volume injections carried out, and still no sign of recovery. Now, it's been suggested that these injuries can happen by overtraining. Now, McCaffrey, apparently, the reason why he sustained these injuries is by doing just that. And if you remember when Fullkrug arrived at West Ham, one of the first things he asked Karen Brady when she did her interview and she talked about Fullkrug is his dedication. He asked straight away, where can I go and train? Maybe he overdoes it just like this American footballer. Now, like I said, these injections were administered for Fullkrug back in October. And that was kind of 4 weeks ago. And there's still no sign of improvement at all. And if no sign is forthcoming, then it could be down to him having to go under the knife. Now, surgery will depend on the seriousness of the tendon injury. But whatever level of surgery might be required, the minimum recovery is a minimum of 4 months, 4 to 6 months. Now, if that happens, then clearly Niclas Fullkrug won't be returning to action at West Ham anytime this season, which makes it even more important that if we need to free up money in order to get another striker in to cover for it, well, not to cover for him, but to bring another striker in, then moving players on like Soler, maybe even Andy Irving, etc., might be the thing that we have to do in order to bring money in for wages for another player. It's going to be interesting to see how it all goes. But Fullkrug being sold in January, I can see it happening with Rodriguez. I can see Soler's loan spell being cut short, but selling Niclas Fullkrug in January, he's going to have to be back now, isn't he? And he's going to have to play and demonstrate that he's over his injury to stand any remote chance of being sold in January. I don't know if that's likely to happen. Right, that's it. Short and sweet. If you've enjoyed the content, like I said at the start of the show, if you're not a subscriber of the channel, please do become a subscriber. Whether you are a subscriber or not, please do hit that like button as well. I'll be back with the West Ham Weekly on Monday evening, so do look out for that. It's a live show that obviously you can have your say about all things that have happened over the past week. Come and join me for that about 9 o'clock on Monday evening. Until then, I'll see you all soon.